now on the north side of the garage, October 7th, 2020. It's a Wednesday. Looking at the gutter guards over on this side of the garage. Here we're looking at Master Shield on the north side of the garage. You can see all the pine needles that are up on the roof. In addition to the pine needles, we've got some small leaves, we've got some helicopters, we've got some bigger leaves. So all this stuff is working its way down off the roof. We've got a pretty good breeze going on right now, so it's kind of cool to see that stuff slide down onto the gutter guard, and sometimes it blows right off and sometimes it gets stuck up there. So here we're looking at the Master Shield system. We've got a little bit of pine needle debris sitting on top of the gutter guard at this point. Like the south side, this one has remained pretty clean the whole time. And what you can see here today is very little stuff. There's a leaf that just passed in front of us, and you saw it just come cruising right off the top. So this one has a good slope to it, and that helps keep the debris moving. Naturally, it's gaining momentum when it starts a little bit higher up the roof, and if there's nothing holding it in place, it'll just keep cruising right off the top as it did there. But we do have a few pine needles here, not only on the surface, but sticking to the inside, this weep hole system that goes across the front. So I'll change hands here and show you. So basically this little channel here is where you have a set of weep holes, and as you can see, some of those pine needles have gotten stuck in the weep holes, and my expectation, based on experience, is that stuff will work its way out of there to the ground below. So again, we got Master Shield here. Let me step down and look at the face of the gutter. So we have a little bit more debris sitting on the front of this system than we did on the south side of the garage. Overall, pretty clean. You know, none of these systems are going to be perfect. So less debris over there to the right, a little bit more here to the center and to the left. If we step down to the bottom, you know, it all remains pretty clean there. So overall, it's doing a good job. This is leaf filter on the north side of the garage, and you can see how much debris is sitting on top of this system. So similar to the south side of the garage, the north side has actually proven to be even more of a challenge for the leaf filter, with all this debris that's worked its way down the roof and is just kind of hanging out on top. Now, I'm hoping we'll get a decent breeze here, and maybe we'll see some of these leaves or pine needles blow off the top or get something off the roof. But you can see the extent to which the debris just works its way down, and then it just wedges there. It just kind of hangs out. And even though it's available, it's like there's nothing really holding it down. It's not as if it got through the screen, and the screen itself has taken hold of the debris. It's just really more the position of the gutter guard sitting more flat or flatter inside the gutter, and it's created a little bit of a shelf situation. And so you've got a combination of the pine needles, the helicopters, and then some of that residue from the locust trees, the flowers from the spring, are still hanging out up here. So if you look underneath the shingle, so it's kind of back behind that shingle where it's darker, there's quite a bit of debris that's still sitting up under there. So that's the top side of leaf filter. If we step down, it's doing a pretty good job on the face of the gutter. Very little debris overall. Kind of a random pine needle that's dangling there, as we've seen in the past, but very little debris on the face of the gutter, so that's doing well. And then you step down to the underside, we have a very similar situation here. No real signs of heavy water dripping at the bottom. So on the north side, the face of the gutter and the underside of the gutter are pretty well clean. but you see the top side of it and it's a whole different story. Here we're looking at leaf solution on the north side of the garage. Quite a bit of pine needle activity here. Combination of the stuff still hanging out on the roof, kind of working its way across the gutter guard surface. And you can also see the channels, the kind of the downward channels here that have caught debris as well. So you've got shingle granules and smaller leaves and debris that get stuck in those channels, but sitting on top of that, you have a whole bunch of pine needles just kind of hanging out. You got some leaves, a few maple seeds, things like that. That gets us down towards the end of that system. So even though it slides up under at an angle, it is kind of got stuff hanging out on top of it. And by and large, the holes in these screens are too small to allow the pine needles. So like I did on another video for one of the other systems, leaf lock, I guess. Let me take the pine needle here off the roof and we'll kind of poke at it, and you see if I poke at the screen here, it's not going through. So if I let go, well, in that case, actually I think it just got stuck in the channel more than it got stuck in the, let me grab that. I don't want to mess with what's up here. But yeah, basically the pine needle isn't able to get through the screen. So although it is showing that it is just barely sticking in there, so it actually did stick in. Now it's certainly not going to go through like it would on some of the wider mesh screens, but interestingly enough, it is porous enough to allow that just to sit there. So in fairness to this, I will remove that. We'll throw it back up on the roof, give it a chance to work its way down naturally. So this is leaf solution on the north side of the gutter. We come to the face. This is where, you know, on a premium gutter guard, this one is really not doing a great job. You can just see all the debris that has clung to the face of the gutter. And when you compare that to both the leaf filter system and Master Shield, this is a night and day difference. Even if we compare it to the gutter glove, which is on the opposite side, so we can't really make a comparison to it on the north side of the garage, but even when compared to the gutter glove on the south side, this one is doing the worst of the premium systems. And then we step down and you can just kind of see the dirt that has built up on the face and in the bottom side of the gutter. Here's leaf lock on the north side of the garage, so quite a bit more pine needle activity than what we see on the south side. We also have remnants of the locust flowers from the spring, or maybe, you know, end of May to present. You've got some of that finer debris that's still hanging out. It's mostly broken up, mostly blown away, washed away, but you can still see little remnants. It almost looks like peppers, little bits of peppercorn across the surface of the gutter guard. But we have quite a bit of debris sitting up here at this point. So whereas on the south side we had very little debris, comparatively speaking, we definitely have more hanging out over here. And I'm trying to look to see, most of this is landed horizontally on top of the gutter, so there's not a whole lot that's stuck inside of it, but I do think, like here for instance, that little bit is stuck vertically inside the gutter or inside the screen. So you can see some situations, and down here's another example where you've got some of that stuff standing vertically inside the screen. So eventually what will happen is it'll either pass through and go inside the gutter and then hopefully wash out, or the bottom portion will break off from the top portion, the bottom portion will wash through, and then the top portion will blow off the top. As we step down to the face of the gutter guard, you can see the amount of debris that has stuck to the face of the gutter. And if we come to the bottom, you can see what's going on there. So overall, for a mid-priced system, this does a pretty decent job. It's certainly not as strong as the leaf filter and the Master Shield, which are premium price systems. But for a mid-priced micro mesh system with a little bit more porous screen, it does a decent job. And at this point is doing a better job than Leaf Solution, one of the other premium systems, in terms of what's hanging out on the front of the gutter. Here we're looking at the Gutter Glove Easy On Do-It-Yourself and Leaf Blaster equivalent of Gutter Glove's micro mesh system. So kind of the DIY product as well as the lower end or mid-grade micro mesh from Gutter Glove. And this system, you can see a fair number of pine needles hanging out on top. If you come down here, you can see some of them are plugged in there vertically. And actually it's kind of a good example of when something plugs vertically, how it can hold stuff behind it. So here you see this vertical pine needle, and then because that got stuck in there vertically, you've got this other pine needles that probably just rolled off more horizontally that bumped up against that and haven't had a chance to come off as a result. So they've gotten stuck up there. And that's one of the issues with gutter guards that allow debris to stick into them vertically. You see this on other systems. It's not as big a deal with a micro mesh type product, but there's certainly other gutter guards where you get enough stuff that lands in it vertically that allows the other stuff just to kind of get stuck behind it, and it kind of works its way back up the roof. So here's an example of how that could definitely happen even on a micro mesh system that most people would think is a really tight weave, not tight enough for these long needle pines, and as a result you've got more debris sitting up on top. In addition to that, you can see the darker elements on here. So that's a combination of more organic debris, probably some shingle granules, and potentially some of the leftover flowers from the locust tree from this spring. Now if we step down, the face of this one is particularly dirty. So you can just see how much debris has kind of worked its way around the corner, followed the path of the water, hit the face of the gutter, and clung to the face of the gutter there. So that one is, at this point, I would say doing the worst job on the north side. And then you come to the underside, and it's just generally kind of getting a little dingy and dirty there. So naturally, one of the things that we're testing is this: how much stuff gets stuck to the face of the gutter, how much water do we see dripping off, and what kind of debris gets stuck to the underside of it. So that gives you kind of an example, but by and large, with the pine needles that are coming down, you can see what's hanging out here in early October. This is the Clean Mesh micro mesh system. It is the last one in the chain of gutter guards along the north side of the garage. And as we look across the screen, we've got a little bit of stuff that's hanging out on top of the screen itself, mostly in this case pine needles, some other remnant debris again from the locust flowers, and maybe some other things that have fallen and washed off and haven't necessarily moved off the screen. But this screen has done a pretty good job over the period of time. You can see this screen is just wide enough that there are a few situations where these pine needles have plugged in here vertically and hanging out. But I would say it's more similar to the Leaf Solution. Actually, I think this screen is a little bit more porous than the Leaf Solution is. And so a little bit more of that needle is getting in there. But because it's got this metal framework behind it, it's really, there's not nowhere for that needle to go. So unless it just hit that perfectly and it was able to go through one of the louvers that sits underneath the screen, it's just going to hang out there, as this one is currently doing. There's a few others over here. So overall, the top of this gutter guard is doing well in terms of keeping the debris out. The pine needles, by and large, are hitting this and cruising off the top. We come over to the face of the gutter, and you can see more debris that is here on the face. And some of this debris has been here for quite a while. I remember some of these bigger splotches of stuff. And again, those are the locust flowers that came down in May. Some of those things worked their way around onto the face of the gutter early on, and they've just decayed there. So it'll be interesting to see as we move into the fall, we get some rainier weather and colder temperatures, whether that stuff continues to cling to the face of the gutter or if it eventually works its way off. We look at the underside, you can definitely see some debris under there that is also collected on the bottom of the gutter, in addition to the dirt that comes off of that. If we come over here to the end, you can also see more dirt and debris on the face of the gutter, in addition to some tiger striping. So here you see these vertical lines, these darker grayish lines. That's what they call tiger striping, which is really driven more by the water out of the sky, hits the front face of the gutter, and then it just drips down like that, and it creates those stripes across your gutter, which, if you have white gutters, anybody that has had white gutters up for a period of time, or any light colored gutter, tiger striping is just something that you're going to see more of than you would on a darker